Welcome back to the Gotham Graffiti Podcast, episode number 24. We're doing something different today entirely. Something that we wanted to do for episode number 25 is kind of like a 25th, doing something special because next week's episode from when you're seeing this will be the first week of cycle. We didn't want to break that up.
Yeah.
So we've gotten comments and DMs before of people asking for top 10 lists, just like take an episode, do top 10 lists. So what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and do the top 10 Batman the Animated Series episodes. These lists have been around forever on multiple different channels and multiple different videos, so we're going to give our own crack at it.
Or you still top 15, right?
I'm sorry, we were going to do top 10, and then we were going to do like a couple honorable mentions.
But the honorable mention list got so long, we're like, let's just do 15 at this point.
We'll just do 15. So, and so what we're doing for this is, for context, these are not what we feel are the best 15 episodes. That would be a different list. These are our personal top 15 episodes from the show. So I have not been as excited for an episode as I am for this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Batman the Animated Series is my favorite piece of comic book media that exists. So anytime I get to talk about it, I'm pumped. So yeah, y'all sit back, grab a drink, grab a snack, and just chill and watch. Yeah. We'll be here for a minute.
Yes.
So I'll go ahead and let you start off at number 15.
Yeah. So before I even start, this was not an easy list to make. There are so many episodes that are, because it was the way we had to word it is that it's like not what you think is the best. It's the ones that, like, if you could only watch 15 episodes,
like your favorite
for the rest of your life, like the ones that you can't live without. And I was like, okay. So my number 15 is Almost Got Him.
15?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I could not live without it, but there are a lot more that I think are, in my opinion, ahead of it.
All right. Well, go.
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty well-known episode of Batman the Animated Series. I mean, it's essentially like a clip show of like all of the main villains of Batman from the series, which I thought was pretty cool. You got literally all of them playing poker, and then the plot twist being that Batman was disguised as Killer Croc the entire time, and he arrests all of them at once, which is like a pretty cool twist. But it's just kind of like a fun, classic Batman the Animated Series episode where you've got all the villains in it. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It's just one of those fun episodes that I'll put on every now and again. But I mean, it's one of those that I was like, I can't not watch.
You can't leave it out.
So I had to put it in the list.
Crazy you had that.
I assume you have it higher than...
Of course I have it on there. Okay, so for context, also really quick, there were two that I wanted to put on my list. They just didn't make the list. And one I need to clarify because he'll be shocked it's not on my list. Christmas with the Joker being one.
Really?
Christmas with the Joker for my younger years was my favorite episode ever.
Yeah. I remember you would talk about it all the time.
But at this point in my life, that's become a thing I watch on Christmas. So it's
like a Christmas special.
I don't watch that thing I used to watch that all the time. Now it's on Christmas Eve, I'll watch. Actually, this past year I watched it with my dad. I made him watch it with me. So it's kind of in its own thing for me at this point in time. And then the other one that didn't make it that I wanted to acknowledge that I think is great is House and Garden, the Poison Ivy episode where she turns straight and they think she's turned straight, but she's actually growing her family. That's a great episode. Y'all should give that one a go. But okay, so for my number 15 it is I Am the Night.
Really?
I Am the Night is my number 15. This one's great. I love when the episodes are centered around Batman and his mental state, because the show does such a great job at developing, and with each villain there's a different mindset and different mental thing they're dealing with and whatever else it may be. But with this, it's this is about Batman. And the first 5 minutes he's sitting there and he just is he looks at Alfred, he goes, "I'm tired, Alfred." And he's like, "Well, you've gotten no sleep in the last few days." And Batman's like, "No, my soul is tired." And so he's just going through it. It's on the anniversary of his parents' death. When everything with the Jazz Man goes down with Commissioner Gordon. Like, this was a really super serious episode at the time, too, because, like, keep in mind, this is 90s kids TV, so it's PG still. It wasn't G. It was PG. But, like, when Gordon gets shot, Bullock, like, audibly says, "Oh, my God." Which, like, on a kid's cartoon at the time, I was saying, whoa.
Pushing it a little bit.
So, like, you could tell the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, all the guys really took this episode very seriously. This is a great episode with Leslie Tompkins. So you get to see that relationship with where he's got a father figure in Alfred, and he's kind of sort of got a mother figure in Leslie, not in the same way, but still.
Right.
It's just, I think it's great. It's also one of those episodes where I love the episodes where it's not a villain, like it's not a Joker or a Riddler or a Two-Face or a Bane. It's like this obscure guy, and it's awesome. It's in my top 15. It's right at the bottom of the list, but still top 15 for me. So yeah,
I like that pick.
So you're 14.
14, you might not like this one either. It's Nothing to Fear. I've gotten to the number 14.
It's not even on my list at all.
So, really? I figured you have literally the only reason I included it in this list, because like it's the first episode of Scarecrow, and
it's like right before they read Simon.
Right. So it's like the episode itself is pretty standard. Like it's not really anything super special. Like it's a good Scarecrow episode. Like, don't get me wrong. The only reason I included it is specifically for that scene where
he's on the
blimp. His father, like he's having the vision of his father turn into a skeleton. He's like, "You're a failure," and he's like, he's like, "I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." I'm like, I can't not have that scene.
That's a great reason.
That is literally the only reason it's on that list.
That's a great reason.
That's all I had to say. That's
all right. Hey, that's fine, man. I'm fine with that. So my 14th is Joker's Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Joker's Wild. So don't worry. This list isn't going to be Joker heavy. I only have a certain number. There's not a bunch of them.
Like all of them.
Yeah. So Joker's Wild for me is great. That's one that it's one that I probably go back and rewatch the most, or not the most, but one of the ones I go back and rewatch a lot. I love when we get to see Joker, because a lot of times in this show, it really is Joker just being a goofball.
Right.
But when we get to see Joker being angry or kind of sinister, and then he mixes it up and he comes right back to this.
Yeah.
That to me is the best Joker has been in those moments. And in this, you get that. Because, the episode starts where they're doing the casino reveal, and it's a Joker themed casino. And Joker's like, he's doing what?
Yeah.
And so he breaks out. He gets out there. I also love this episode because you get the great exchange when Joker's at the blackjack table.
Oh, and he's dealing to Bruce Wayne.
And he's dealing to Bruce Wayne. And Bruce knows it's him. Bruce knows it's the real Joker. Because for context, the whole gimmick of Kaiser and what he's made of the casinos, everyone's dressed like Harley Quinn and Joker. And his claim is, he's like, well, they're just card characters. Like, I can't help if we have supervillains after, whatever. Right. But so Joker's blending in as just one of the other dealers, but Batman knows it's him. And so he's kind of chirping him a little bit. And it's just really cool to see Bruce Wayne, who's Batman, but being Bruce Wayne, kind of get under the skin of Joker. You get a couple of just great fun scenes of Joker riding around in like the Joker mobile, and Batman's on top of it. You have the great scene where they're fighting in the helicopter in the air.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It's one of those, I love it because they let the Joker be a real threat, where not that the Joker's not always a threat in this show, but sometimes it's just very, hey, we wanted to make a Joker episode. Kind of like Last Laugh. It's just like, hey, we just want to make a Joker episode. But yeah, episodes like this, Joker's Favor, those are my bread and butter. So yeah, for that reason, it's my 14th.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So what do you got? 13.
I got number 13. I have Mad Loves.
Why?
Yeah. Kind of for the same reasons that you just said about Joker's Wild. Because I hadn't seen this episode in forever. And like 2 nights ago, I went back and watched some of the new Adventure episodes. And, yeah, dude, I thought this was a really good one. It wasn't in my top 10, so I had to put it somewhere over here. But like some of the reasons you were just saying, where it's like you see Joker become sinister for a minute, like the mask of the Joker like comes off for a second. He like loses his mind. Yeah. And we get to see that a lot in this episode because he's obsessing over the fact that he needs to kill Batman, but it has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And, Harley Quinn, you get to see a lot of Harley Quinn's backstory. And this is before Harley Quinn became so mainstream and everyone loved her. And she's the girl with the baseball bat and the leggings or whatever. Like, she's actually a real character.
She's actually what Harley Quinn.
She's well, obviously this is where she came from, but like seeing like Harley Quinn actually being a true character, like almost like a sympathetic, relatable character in certain aspects, where she's like, she just wants Joker's love. Like, that's all she wants. And she's like, I'll do whatever it takes to get there. And then like that scene where Joker's like throws her through a window.
Oh, when he hits her with the sword.
Yeah, with the swordfish. And then he's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, see you later, Batman.
See you later.
Yeah, and then like you see,
Or no, the line is he says, kids today, no respect for tradition.
oh yeah, and then he's like, well, this is a rare opportunity, and then he like goes back to Batman. But anyway, like when Harley Quinn's sitting on the pavement, she's just like, I didn't get the joke. I was like, oh man, because it reminds me of, I don't even remember what the episode's called. It's the one where like Batman brings Harley Quinn along with him, and like at the end of the episode, he buys
Harley Quinn.
Yes, it reminded me of that episode. Where I'm like, there were several instances throughout the show where like Harley Quinn could have like actually redeemed herself and like came out of that, but because
Like, that's what's great about Harley Quinn.
Right.
She's always under the trap.
Exactly. And so it almost makes her like a tragic character. And like, I think,
Which, really quick side note, makes her far more interesting.
yeah,
This I hate this new Harley Quinn, where she's like, like you just said, I've got a bat and I'm gonna wear short skirts.
I'm as crazy as
I'm as crazy as the Joker, if not crazy. It's just like,
not really.
that's not what Harley Quinn's supposed. Also,
right.
it immediately makes her less interesting.
Right.
It immediately makes her less interesting.
Well, makes her one dimensional, because the thing that made Harley Quinn so interesting in the show is obviously because they created her in the first place, but that they made her like, she just wants the love of the Joker, and she's trapped in that like mindset.
She has Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, it's like
She's stuck in an abusive relationship that she can't get.
but she truly loves this man.
Right.
Like, it's like, and then they tried to change it, and it just. Anyway, that's not what this is about.
Well, anyway, so Mad Love for me, number 13.
So great pick, man. Great pick. So number 13 for me is the Cape and the Cowl conspiracy.
Yes.
So yeah, like I just said, I love the episodes where it's not necessarily a villain. It's more just a generic mobster, whatever it is. And then this one we get to see, a gentleman who he gets hired out by mobsters and businessmen and corrupt officials to go do. He's like an ultimate illusionist. And so he knows how to make things appear to where they're not really there. He can do certain things with lights or shadows or effects or whatever it is, but in like real time. And he's hired by a businessman, or who he thinks he's being hired by, to get the Batman's cape and cowl. He's like, look, you don't have to kill him. I just need the cape and the cowl, and we can be on our way. I'll tell you what you want to know. You get me the cape and the cowl. And so the entire episode, you're seeing this guy lure Batman into traps. And the first one, Batman gets out of it, and he's kind of like, dang, how am I going to get him? And the second one, Batman doesn't get out of it. Now, you find out after the fact that Batman wasn't really trying to in the first place. But he doesn't get out of it. And but one of the best moments of the whole show is, or the episode is, I love how when he gets the cape and the cowl, he's like, all right, thanks, man. Like, he's like, I don't have anything against you. This is strictly business. Like, it's so professional criminal that he's like, this is just business. Because Batman's got another little like bandana mask around his eyes underneath his mask. So when he takes it off, he's like, oh, you can keep that one, man. Like, I don't need it. Like, I just need this. Keep your identity. Like, he's not even trying to make it personal. So then he goes back to the businessman's office who hired him. It turns out the whole time it was Batman in disguise. He had put prosthetics on. He takes them all off. And he was wired. So he was getting this guy to admit the stuff that he was doing so the police can, the GCPD can go get him. This is, to me, one of the most underrated fights in the whole show. The fight you get between Batman and this guy is great. I mean, they start fighting with gym equipment. They're fighting with barbells. Yeah. They're fighting with free weights. They're in this skyscraper. So it's this awesome aesthetic of them like going between levels of this skyscraper. And yeah, it's just a really good to me, like, it's really polished. It's a really polished, well done episode. It's one that I enjoy going back and watching because I love watching anything with Batman where it's a brain versus brain matchup. Like, it's someone that maybe they're not as smart as Batman, but they're right there, and it's giving Batman.
Well, especially because a lot of times when they write those episodes, it's like they make you think that Batman lost, and right at the very end,
right,
he does something where it's like, how on earth?
How did you do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's a great episode. I think this is one of those episodes in the show that I think visually it looks great. Not that they all don't. There are just certain episodes that have a little oomph to them.
Yeah.
And this one had a little oomph to it. So yeah, for me, 13 is the Cape and the Cowl Conspiracy. That's a good one.
So for me, my number 12, I have Over the Edge.
That one didn't make my list, but it's a great episode.
It's a pretty good one.
It's a great episode.
For those of you who don't know, it's a New Adventures episode where it's a Scarecrow episode where you think that, or you see Batgirl basically fall to her death. And, Gordon is literally there when it happens. And he unmasks Barbara and realizes, like, oh, this is my daughter. And he's like, you didn't, like, to Batman, he's like, you didn't think to tell me, like, this is my daughter. She's been fighting crime and risking her life. And now she's paid the ultimate price. And then, so the entire episode just becomes Batman versus the police. And, like, they break into
the whole Bat family verse.
Well, yeah, no, because you've got Tim Drake's Robin with Batman as well. And Nightwing makes a brief cameo to help Batman kind of get away a little bit. But it's a really cool...
Nightwing ends up getting arrested.
Yeah, Nightwing gets arrested. Wasn't it... Bane shows up, right? And, like, they think that he killed Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because the plot twist of it is that was all Scarecrow's fear gas, and Batgirl got knocked out, and that was her dreaming about...
She was dreaming
what would have happened, and then she eventually goes home and tells her dad, like, yeah, I'm Batgirl. And it's just like, it's kind of a cool what if, like, episode where it's like, what would have happened if this were to... And, like, you really do believe that this is happening throughout the episode.
Because they don't reveal it's a dream sequence until the last 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, because, like, you think, like, oh, crap,
Batgirl's dead. Barbara's dead.
Yeah. And, like, you're thinking, like, if you haven't seen the show before, you're like, there's so many episodes left. Like, how in the world is Batman going to be on the run and on the land for the rest of this? And, like, Batman dies, and then she wakes up, and you're like, oh, okay. But, like, which... A lot of people don't like it when show writers do that, where it's like, it was all a dream. Like, they don't like that. I personally don't mind it just because it was a one-off. It was one of those, like, it's a cool revisit every now and again to just kind of see what Batman would do in a situation like that. But
it was also before the time where that was becoming so common.
Yes, because it became super saturated, like in the 2010s.
Yeah, so like this was still early or later 90s. So it was like it was done appropriately for the times.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's a great pick.
Over the Edge, number
great 12. Pick. Okay, so for me, my number 12 is Read My Lips. The first Scarface episode. This is just for me, guys. This is. If you don't know, it's always a tie between like 70s, late 70s, early 80s country music and big band for like what my number like. But I love big band. I always have. I love big band, jazz. I just love that world and that culture and that time. I really romanticize it, and like I've always been in love with it since I was a kid. And so. Obviously, I love the old mobster movies. Like, I love the old lips. And so this Read My Lips episode is like all my favorite things because you get the jazzy soundtrack. Scarface and his goons are all like 40s mobsters, and it's Batman. Like,
and Batman, of course.
It's a perfect mix. Even aside from the aesthetics of the episode and how it fits a certain niche for me as a fan, it's done so well. Mm-hmm. It's done so well. It's one of those you can really tell they took their time with this. Like, I think the ventriloquist and Scarface are one of the more underrated rogues of Batman's galleries.
Yeah, he's actually a very interesting.
He's super, and this episode nails it. We're like Batman's eavesdropping on their hideout tower, whatever it is before he's able to catch anybody, like with anything yet. And and he hears the ventriloquist talking to Scarface. And like you as the viewer can hear Scarface because you can hear it through the ventriloquist's point of view, but Batman's not hearing he's not hearing Scarface. And so he goes and he's like, who are you talking to? And he's like, oh, Mr. Scarface. It's nothing. It's okay. It's okay. And like you see this man's actually really mentally tormented and like he's so trapped. And what's great is that it does, because obviously since it's a Scarface dummy, this sweet, innocent, oblivious man is also on the backside of his brain, oblivious or ignorant to him, a criminal mastermind. He's coming up with these insane plans and motives to where he's outsmarting Batman at times. And he's just this guy. The goons are great. You know, a lot of times you just get nameless goons, but the goons that you get the big, his name's literally Rhino. He's this big, hulking, massive goon in like a zoot suit.
Yeah.
You know, you got the other two guys, and it's really well done. I always love the episodes where the show makers come out and say, this is one we really loved making. This is one that on documentaries and stuff I've heard, they're like, we really love making this episode. Okay. So yeah, for me, it's great. It's just one of those not super high stakes, just a fun, gritty Gotham City mobster Batman, but you also get the true focus on the rogue of the ventriloquist and Scarface, and they really set up that dynamic well, and it carries off into the rest of the show. So yeah, for me, that's my number 12.
I like that one. For my number 11, I have the Demon's Quest Part 1 and 2.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So this one's pretty cool. We get to see, turns out that this was actually when they were making, when they were going to make their first movie based off of the series. It was either going to be Mask of the Phantasm or Demon's Quest.
Which, thank God.
Yes, they made the right decision. But like because Demon's Quest feels like a globe-trotting adventure with Batman. And like it's cool that, you know, Ra's al Ghul was able to like just figure out who Batman is. And, you know, you get the stuff with Talia that's pretty cool. And Robin's there. It's just like a cool globe-trotting Batman adventure with, you know, Ra's al Ghul. And then also you get the Ra's al Ghul was gonna, you know, destroy what was it? It was like the hemisphere or something like that. Well,
yeah, it was like
he had like a satellite.
Yeah, a satellite that was gonna go down and or no, it wasn't the hemisphere. I think he was gonna take out certain parts of like continents, so like he could restart and like
he was gonna like shape it into his own monster.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times with Ra's al Ghul, people are like, oh yeah, Ra's al Ghul's right. Like Batman, you know, is holding back or he's not doing all he could be. And rather to see like, oh no, Ra's al Ghul's actually insane. He's insane. He's going to try and, you know, destroy parts of the globe just so he can reshape it. Very Vandal Savage of him.
Yes.
And so it's just cool. And then you have the sword fight between the two.
You get the 80s comics shirtless, but with the mask still on. Sword fight.
Very swashbuckling
it's
adventure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's just a fun, like...
I think that episode does a great job as well as displaying. I think the voice actor of Ra's al Ghul in that never gets enough credit. He's so good.
He's extremely...
Especially when he's
sinister.
When he's falling into the pit and he's laughing.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's
what's cool about him is that kind of similar to Mark Hamill's Joker is that, you know, the Joker, he's got his jokey, goofy, whatever, and then Ra's al Ghul's got his calm, very collected, and then they'll flip a switch and like he's crazy, he's demented, and he's psychotic. Yeah. It's cool that it was, especially like when they throw him in the Lazarus pit the first time and he just absolutely loses his mind. Like,
oh yeah, that's right.
And almost, because that wasn't that the one where he almost killed Talia.
He lunges for Talia,
or he like picks her up and he's like gonna throw her. Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene. So, but yeah, Demon's Quest.
All right. So, my number 11 is definitely never been in anybody else's top tier.
Okay.
My number 11 is the Terrible Trio.
Oh, yeah.
I freaking love that episode, y'all. I love it. Like I've said twice now, I love the low scale, low event, just Gotham City Batman episodes.
Yeah.
And this is great also because I've never been able to stand preppy white boys. They drive me nuts. So
seeing them as villains, it healed something.
It healed something in my inner child going to a money school. I'm not coming from money, but no. So this is great because it's like, so the setup is it's these three, like the assumption you make is they're post college. Right. So like maybe 26, 27, 28 at the absolute latest. And they're all these sons of like tycoons. So like one father does like sea importing, one father does like aircraft sales, and then one father does like something for land distribution. I can't remember what it is. And so they're all daddy's money rich boys, but like not just typical you like the nice house in the neighborhood. Like no, they have like penthouses in the sky rich boys. Mm-hmm. And so the whole thing is they're becoming so bored with all this money. They're like, let's just go start robbing people for the sport of it.
Right.
And so they put these masks on. And so they put on a shark mask, a vulture's mask, and a wolf mask to match the industry that their fathers are in, where their money comes from. And it's great because I love it because you really get to, they really actually, even though it's a one-off and it's just these random guys, they really do a good job of setting up like who they are as just dudes. Mm-hmm. Like they make you really not like them as just guys. Yes. And so when they're villains, you're like, man, I cannot wait for this guy to get his chin kicked in. And so basically what happens is the main guy is dating this girl whose father's also rich, but she's a sweetheart. Mm-hmm. They go and try and rob her father. The father wakes up in the middle of the night, tries to call the police on them. They beat him up, put him in the hospital. They get away. And so it ends with they're like, hey, why don't we take to the girlfriend? Like, why don't we take you out to the cabin for the weekend? You know, we'll chill, we'll go snow skiing, whatever. Da, 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 da. She's like, okay. And they get up there, and it turns out she finds out that they've been the ones doing it, and that they've robbed her father. And just to seal the deal on how awful these people are, man, they roofie her, or not roofie her. They give her like chloroform or something, right? Put her in a car, and they push it off a cliff. Like they're going to kill this 24-year-old chick. And just at that time, Batman's coming in with the Batwing and like grabs it with his claws from the Batwing and places the car. And then just goes and mauls these dudes. And it's amazing. But yeah, I've always loved it. It's just, it's one of those kind of like we were saying at the beginning for some of yours. It's one of those, I don't know why I love it as much as I do. It's just one of those episodes I've always been like, man, that's an awesome episode.
Yeah. I do remember, because Batman, and there used to be this channel on cable called The Hub. Now I know what you're thinking; it's not what it is, but it's
actually a pretty sweet channel.
And it had a lot of old like cartoons on it. But that's the channel that they would always play Batman the Animated Series. And before I got any of the DVDs, that's how I would watch it, because he had all the box sets and all that, and I would watch it on cable. And you know, they would play the same couple of episodes usually a lot of times. And I remember they played one that they never played before, and it was a Terrible Trio. And I came over to your house, and I was like, yeah, I watched an episode that I'd never seen before. And you're like, oh, what? I was like, it's called The Terrible Trio. Like, it was an interesting watch. And then I think later that night we ended up watching it, and you're like, that was actually really good.
I don't remember, but that sounds correct.
Yeah.
That sounds correct. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a good, it's like a great single issue Batman. They're like, hey, we're giving you this one-off. Just enjoy it. It's fun. So yeah.
And that's the cool thing about Batman the Animated Series is that they can give you the high stakes, big villains.
Part 2.
The Jokers, the Banes, whatever it is. And then you have these one-offs where you're like, that was a really good episode, but it was just like, that's the only one of that we're going to get.
And what's amazing about the show is both types are executed perfectly. Yes. The quality does not drop in either. Yes. So what is your number 10?
Kraken
10, guys.
Kraken 10. Here we go. Number 10, I have the Bane episode. Just titled Bane.
Yeah, Bane.
So this is kind of one of those, like, there's not really a whole lot of like psychological elements to this episode. It's just pretty straightforward. It's the only episode that Bane solos. And, Bane comes from South America. He's like, some businessman's like, hey, can you kill
Rupert Thorne?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what it was. And then he's like, hey, can you kill Batman? And he's like, yeah, I can kill Batman.
Yeah.
What do you mean? And like the whole episode leads up to, you know, Batman's trying to figure out who this Bane guy is. Bane's trying to track down Batman, and it all accumulates at the very end where they're on this like cargo ship or whatever it is, and there's just a brawl with Batman, Robin, Bane, and his girlfriend. And it's just
Candace.
Yes. Yeah, and like it's actually kind of funny. The Robin and Candace fight is actually really funny because he's not really trying to fight.
Dude, I wish I was talking about.
Yeah,
I'd take his spot.
Yeah, but yeah, the fight between Bane and Batman is like that. That was kind of
It's top 10.
yeah. It was a pretty cool fight, and like seeing Bane also because we've talked about it before. Like, you know, this was the '90s, and they could get away with a lot more. And so when did he throw a batarang at his like little notch thing he has on his wrist that he uses?
Yeah, he cracks the like
It's like a dial.
dials.
Yeah, and like you see him start to like lose control of the venom, and like his eyes pop out of his mask.
The animation on that,
and it almost like even as watching it as a grown up, you're kind of like,
it's a little disturbing.
it's a little like, oh, that's kind of freaky. Like, I'm surprised that they got away.
It
with
was
that.
done that well.
Yes.
Where you're literally like watching a man get pumped with so much HGH at one time that it's like gonna make him explode.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it's just that episode it's the only episode with Bane. Like, Bane's in other stuff, but like Bane, this is the only time where Bane is actually the main villain of the episode. And you know, it was cool to see Batman versus Bane. So Bane's one of my favorite villains.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So for me, crack of the top 10 is a bullet for Bullock.
That's a good one.
A bullet for Bullock. I'm noticing a trend that I'm picking a lot of the. I like what I like, y'all. I like what I like.
You're picking a lot of the lower stakes.
I like what I like, guys. So a bullet for Bullock is great just because. Once again, you get this snazzy, jazzy soundtrack in the episode. It's snowing. It's Christmas time. You get that nice Gotham City aesthetic. And I love it because Bullock's a fan favorite in the show. Everybody loves Bullock.
Right.
And so getting this show where, like, Bullock has put away a lot of people and put away a lot of big-time criminal names. And he's like, he's as much as he dislikes Batman, he has to go to him and be like, I need your help. Somebody's got hit on my head, and I can't figure out who it is. And it's great because Batman's like, all right, I'll help you. And it's awesome because you get the Vinny the Shark, where they think they find out who it is. And they think it's Vinny the Shark, this like mob kingpin or whatever. And they go down to the docks. And it's just so Gotham City.
Yeah.
They go down to the docks, and Batman, and it's one of my favorite moments of the whole show is watching Batman and Bullock team up in a physical fight to take out like this gang.
Yeah.
And it's a great fight. Bullock holds his own well. Batman just gets to do his Batman stuff. And they catch Vinny the Shark. And Bullock's like, we got him, you know, it's all settled now, whatever. And so Bullock gets home, and as he's walking into the front door of his building, his landlord has got a gun like this. And he's like, I tried to get you to leave. Because obviously Bullock's a slob. He wanted Bullock out of his building. And he goes, do you know how much your apartment could go for right now? Do you know how much I could pay for rent? And he goes, it's a mess. There's bugs everywhere. You leave food everywhere. You don't pay your bills. And Bullock's like, not even scared. He's like, it was you? Yeah. Like, what? And Batman was watching, swoops in, grabs him. And it's just kind of a funny ending because he starts going psychotic. He's like, he starts laughing at it like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening. But it's just a great episode where you get to see. I love the episodes where you can tell Paul Dini wrote them. Where like Paul Dini was like, here's what I want to do. This is one of those episodes where Paul Dini was like, let me flex my writing to where I'm going to make a episode about Bullock, one of the best in the show, in the series. It's amazing. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, for those reasons, cracking my top 10 is a Bullet for Bullock.
That's a good one. That was one that was hard to leave off.
I love that episode, man.
I almost switched it for another one of the episodes, but I was like, I can't live without any of these. But
I got you.
Anyway, so for my number 9, I have the Riddler's Report. So this is my favorite Riddler episode. It's very I like it because I feel like out of all the Riddler episodes, this is one of those, like, the battle of wits is very palpable because not only is, because a lot of times, you know, when you get a Riddler episode, it's like, okay, Riddler's the bad guy, so I'm going to try and outsmart Batman. But like in this one, everyone thinks that the Riddler is now a good guy, and so he's trying to not only fool everybody else into thinking that he's, you know, straight now and he's gone the way of the straight and narrow, but like he's trying to trick them, and he's also trying to like take care of Batman.
Yeah.
And what's cool to see is throughout the episode is like how it's almost like being a villain and like trying to outsmart Batman and like doing these riddles is almost like a drug to him, where it's like he can't not do it. Like he can't not do it because the rush and the ego boost that he gets from outsmarting Batman and trying to, you know, figure out how to trap him or kill him or whatever. It fuels him as a person. And same thing we were talking about a couple of numbers ago. We were talking about how, you know, you'll see an episode where if it's a battle of wits where the villain will, you know, get the upper hand and you think, oh, was Batman like toast? And then like the last 30 minutes of the episode, you realize Batman had one last trick up his sleeve. He had a, you know,
what did he do?
Yeah, where he traps Batman in this warehouse and blows the thing to, you know, high heavens. And then he's thinking, okay, I'll take care of the Batman. I can, you know, focus on my career of making toys and whatnot. And then like Batman just shows up and he's like, how did you do it? It turns out there was a safe that was in the room that he hid in, and like it protected him from the blast. And you see the Riddler at Arkham, and he's like screaming at this guy. He's like, I need to know, how did you do it? I don't understand. Yeah, which is like that's a really cool scene. But I think, just to reiterate, I think this is the best Riddler episode where you get to see a true battle of wits between Batman and the Riddler. And just like how him being a criminal and him, you know, doing these riddles to outsmart Batman, like feels. And it's just, I really like that episode.
Oh, it sets up all of this. I love it. My number 9 is Bane.
Bane, okay.
Bane, yeah. So we're pretty close there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the Bane episode. Bane is for me, it's always a tie between Bane and Two-Face for my second favorite Batman villain. Yeah. So I love Bane. This episode's great because I think a lot of times you don't get to really see, like, it's always just assumed how strong Bane is. Mm-hmm. And this episode, they're like, no, Bane's going to like crush the Batmobile with his hands.
Yeah.
And you get that great line from Batman where he's like, Alfred's like, but why would he do that, sir? And Batman's like, between a couple of guys, Alfred, messing with the other one's car, that's real personal. That's real personal. Yeah, so it's just great. I love the Bane design. The design of the Bane design's great because I think it's such a great start for the show. It fits the aesthetic of the show so well. And then what they transition to in the New Adventures with how he looks at that it's just like it did this.
Yeah.
I love the aesthetic. I love the dynamic of in the episode of Candace kind of being the other, or Bane being the other man to Rupert Thorne. Because, you know, Candace is...
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, because Candace is basically Rupert Thorne's secretary, but it's heavily implied she is doing extra duties.
Right.
And...
Working overtime.
But when Bane gets to town, she likes the Hispanic juice head. She likes herself some Bane. And so a lot of times it's like she's with Banner when she's not supposed to be, or she's doing whatever. Rupert Thorne's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so like that's just a great little element I love about that episode.
Yeah, I completely forgot about
That's a great part of it. And then like you get the like you touched on, the end brawl is great. The great thing about the brawl too is they give it time to breathe. So it's not just a quick thing, but it's a solid 2 to 3 minutes where they're just going at it. This stuff with Robin's great. You know, for a minute there, you really do think it's Robin going to drown when he's tied up to those chains.
Yeah.
But of course not. And then I love the ending of, it's one of those just Batman being Batman moments when after Bane juices out and everything's out of the system, Batman grabs him by like his neck scruff and throws him into Rupert Thorne's office. And he's like, this is the best you have to throw me, Thorne.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh
man!
And then he's got the tape of Candace talking to Bane about like, yeah, once we take care of the Batman, we could take care of Thorn and it can all be ours.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, by the way, I think you might want to hear this. And he clicks play on the cassette and it plays. And as they're walking out, you hear the Tanders. Yeah. It's just a great episode. Definitely top 10 for me. So yeah, that's why Bane is my number 9.
Yeah, I forgot about those oldest of that episode.
Yeah. So okay, really quick. We just checked the timestamp. We know this is long. Yes. So this is gonna be long, y'all. This is specifically this episode is we understand this does not get as many views as are there. But
yeah.
This is for our folks and fans.
Yes.
That enjoy just sitting back and watching and grind with us. This is gonna be one of those.
For those of you who are sticking to the end, we appreciate
you. Yeah. So we're about to start 8 through 1. So Scott, why don't you go ahead and give us your number 8?
So number 8, I have Old Wounds.
You Nightwing fan.
I know. Well, you're gonna just wait. So this is, for those of you who don't know, this is the episode where Robin officially quits, and it's actually being told, it's like a flashback sequence. So Tim Drake stops a robbery. Nightwing comes to help him, and Tim Drake is like, whatever happened between y'all, like you and Batman? Like, why'd you quit? You were the dynamic duo. And so it's a flashback sequence of what happened and what led up to Robin officially leaving Batman to go being his own man.
Really quick, not to cut you off, because I don't know if you're going to mention it or not. How cool is it in that episode that we get to see old Robin? Like, you get to see old Dick as Robin.
Right? Yeah, because I was going to get to that, where like Robin in the flashback sequence, like he's already he graduates college in the episode. So like he's 23, 24, whatever it is. And he graduates with honors, and Batman doesn't show up to his graduation, and then he's got to go leave his own graduation party to go help Batman and be Robin. And then you get the scene where Joker's what was his plan? Oh yeah, he was doing something with the radars where he's gonna like mess up the aircraft, and he wanted a certain it was like $4 billion or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
So that was his plan. And so one of the guys that was helping the Joker, he gets away, but like they track him down to his house with his family. And Batman breaks into the house and takes the guy and throws him up onto the wall. And his little boy, if I had to guess, was maybe 6, 7.
Well, it's his old lady.
Yeah, and his wife. And he's in Batman's threatening and interrogating this guy in front of his family, and Robin's sitting there like, hey man, we can't do this.
Not in front of his kid.
Not in front of his kid. Let's take it outside or something. And he's like, we'll leave as soon as he gives us what I want. And Robin's like, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm not being a part of this. And then you get this up with Batgirl, because Batgirl's like, I don't understand why Dick constantly stands me up and what's constantly going through his head. Because he runs to her apartment at 3:00 in the morning, and he's like, I have to get away from him. He's just too controlling or whatever. And so Batman reveals to Batgirl that he's Batman and Robin, or Dick Grayson is Robin, and they team up to go stop the Joker. And then Robin comes to the scene where they're fighting the Joker to save Batgirl from falling to her death. And at the end, obviously they stop the Joker. Batgirl's an integral part of that. And then at the very end, it's he's like, Batman's like, I told her. And he's like, why did you do that? And he was like, oh, whatever. And so Robin loses his mind. He's like, that was, and you didn't tell me that Barbara was Batgirl either, but you told her that I was
that wasn't your decision.
And so at this point in the episode, Dick Grayson has reached a boiling point. He's like, you are so controlling. You're manipulating me. This is not fair. I'm done. I'm not your partner anymore.
Yeah.
And the thing that just nails it into the coffin is Batman genuinely is Dick, I'm sorry. And he goes to grab Robin to console him. And Robin just flips around and decks Batman right across the chin. And, he goes down and Batgirl's freaking out, what just happened. And then he leaves. And the episode doesn't end that way, because it flashes forward to Nightwing talking to the new Robin. And he's like, you know what? Maybe it is time for me to
They make amends.
They make amends and everything. But it's a really good, because, I think with the Robin to Nightwing, I think a lot of times it's usually kind of brushed over. It's like, oh, well, we went different ways. And, but like there was some like bad blood between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne for like a while.
A solid amount
of time.
Enough time for him to grow a mullet.
Yeah, that too. And like it was cool seeing, because, I'm a huge Dick Grayson guy. So like seeing Dick Grayson, given it was kind of hard watching him punch Batman. But like it was cool seeing him taking a stand. Like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gone. Like, I'm gonna go do what I want to do. Yeah, I'm gonna do it the way that I want to do it. So, but
it's a great episode.
That's why it's my number 8. So
it's definitely in the top 3 of the New Adventures.
Oh, easily.
So my number 8 is Trial.
Trial, that's a good one.
Trial, yeah. So I love Trial. It's great, there's this new DA in town who's calling into question Batman and his antics and his service to the city, and if he really creates these villains. And, she's really getting the public's ear about it, and it's causing issues for Batman. And so essentially what happens is all the inmates at Arkham take over Arkham, and they orchestrate this trial. And so by means, they kidnap the DA, they drug and kidnap Batman, and they get them in there. And Joker's playing the judge, and it's literally his entire rogues gallery is the jury. What do you call it? The jury. And what's great is they get in there, and she's like, "What's happening?" And Joker's like, "Well, you're going to defend him. You're his attorney." And she's like, "I'm not doing this." And Batman's like, "You're going to have to.
Yeah, this is how we have to play their game.
We have to play their game." And so you literally see like Matt Hatter goes up, Poison Ivy goes up, Harley Quinn goes up, I think Croc goes up, and Two-Face as well. And all these villains go up and they're telling how Batman made them.
Right.
And how if it wasn't for Batman, I wouldn't be here right now. And then by the very end of it, she's making her final remark. And she's like, after hearing all of your stories, I can find that you made him just as much as he made you.
Yeah.
Like, I was wrong. And obviously the villains are like, well, that's too bad because we're going to kill you both.
Yeah.
And so...
This is all a ruse anyway.
So it doesn't matter. And so you see all the villains take them into this room. You get Batman outsmarting all the villains. I'm not going to say all the details in case you want to go watch it. You get Batman outsmarting the villains, and you get this awesome fight between Batman's rogues gallery and Batman. Right. The GCPD finally tracks them, and they find them. They get in there. You get this awesome rooftop fight between Batman and Joker, and while Joker's still in full judge garb, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And you get this just awesome sentimental moment at the end between Batman and the attorney, where she's like, I can. I may have been a little quick to judge. I'm sorry. And it's kind of assumed that she's going to back off the public ridicule of the Batman. But yeah, it's just super well done. It's one of those episodes where you get to see any episode in the show where you get to see all the rogues at once. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just great to see. It's also great. The attorney's also great. Whoever that is, whoever they got. So
she has a good arc, and
she's great in the show. It's a great arc. So yeah, for me, it's one of my favorites, and that's why it's at my number 8 slot. So, yeah.
Well, no, there's a funny part of that episode where Batman escapes and he turns off the light so they can't see him.
I literally just said I wasn't going to tell all the details.
I just want to say this part where because he obviously wins, right? And since the lights turn off, and Two-Face, I think it was Two-Face. He goes, "Okay, nobody panic." And then, Harley Quinn is, hanging from the rafters, with, duct tape over her mouth. And Joker goes, "Okay, let's start panicking." But yeah, that I do like that episode a lot.
What's your 7?
My number 7 is The Laughing Fit.
Oh, yes. So I'm surprised that cracked your top 10.
Yes, This episode, because you mentioned earlier that there are certain episodes throughout the show that the animation just has a little bit of oomph, where it's just a little bit better. This is definitely one of those episodes. This is also another one of those episodes where we get to see Joker being not just a goofball, but he's a little bit more sinister than he normally is.
Well, he's poisoning Gotham's food supply.
Well, I know, but especially the scene where he breaks into the
with Carl Francis.
Yeah, and he's you're actually kind of scared of him a little bit. He's just being a little bit too menacing.
Mark Hamill drops the octave.
Yeah. But this is a cool episode. The fish are also really creepy, where he was gonna he makes these Joker fish that were going to poison the Gotham water supply, and he was going to, kill a bunch of people and all this that. And like, the end is really cool with you get Batman riding a shark, which is that's really cool.
Yeah.
You see Bullock actually what was it? Because Bullock gets kidnapped, right? And they take him.
No, Bullock doesn't get kidnapped. He finds them before Batman does. And he finds where they're at.
That's right. Because doesn't Bullock he switches places with Bullock because they had him tied up over the shark tank, and then Batman like switches places.
No, they drop Bullock and Batman dives in to go get him.
That's right. That's what it is. Yeah. And but yeah, it's to me, this might be one of my favorite Joker episodes. It's
definitely top 3.
Yeah, you get to see Joker being super menacing. It's a very like aesthetically, it's a really cool show. You think Joker might have died at the end. I won't say if he did or not, but like there's that as well. But yeah, it's a pretty Jokery episode.
Jokery episode
is the best way I could describe it.
I hear you. So my number 7 is also a Joker episode. My number 7 is Mad Love. So it was higher on my list. I love Mad Love. I think it's the best episode out of the New Adventures. It's the origin of Harley Quinn. Like, it's the origin of one of the most popular comic book characters in history at this point in time. It's done great. The animation in it is great. I honestly like Harley in it more than I like Joker. Like, I love...
Well, she steals the show.
The voice acting by... What's her name? Harleen Sorkin. The voice acting by Harleen Sorkin in it is like you're heartbroken for her. You're heartbroken for Harley. It's also great, especially if you read the one-off. They've got a trade of Mad Love. If you've read the one-off trade, it has a little bit more detail, so it makes the episode a little bit more enjoyable. You can fill in some likes with certain things,
right?
But yeah, it's just great. It's also one of my favorite things about it is, like you said earlier, it displays how Joker's like, I only get to kill Batman, but it has to be worthy of Batman. I have to kid. It can't just be I can't just gun him down. It has to be worthy of killing the Batman.
Right.
And the stuff with Harley and Joker's great. Like, you see how it really displays how great of a manipulator Joker is. Where you're like, oh, this guy is conniving. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing. The stuff with Harley where she breaks him out shows you how resourceful she can be. How she's not just always aloof. She's actually pretty resourceful. Actually, she outsmarts Batman.
Right.
She outsmarts Batman. Obviously the end's great. The phone call's hilarious. Oh, hey, where have you been? Oh, Batman, Mom. You don't say.
You have who tied to where?
Who tied to where? They bolts over there, and the whole scene ensues. But and the line where it's also, you get a little bit of the tragic backstory of Joker, where he's like, the one painful truth I've always told you about comedy. You're always taking shots at folks who just don't get the joke. And he shoves her out the window.
Yeah.
And when she falls and she's bleeding out of her mouth, and she's like, it's my fault. I didn't get the joke. And even in that moment, she's still like, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Like, you see how tortured her mind is by this man.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the Batman and Joker stuff's great. The Bat when they're on top of the train, and Batman's like, I'll tell you what, she had me a lot better than you ever did.
Oh, that was
Joker's cool. Like, rages out and into fighting. And
he was like, I had the blood rushing to my head, and I knew the only way that I was going to get out of there is if I made her call you.
I knew your massive ego would never allow anyone else to honor it.
Yeah.
It's just great. It's the fight between for that being the finale, because that's the finale of the show.
Right.
For that being the finale of the show, and that being the final showdown between Joker and Batman, it's just chef's kiss. And then you get the great spot at the end where Harley's in Arkham all bandaged and casted up and hurt, and you think she's heartbroken, and she looks over and there's a single rose in a vase with the card that says J with a heart on it, and you're like, he's back.
He's got her again.
Yeah, it's a great episode, and that's why it's my number 7. So what do you got at 6?
I have Two-Face Part 1 and 2 at number 6.
Way too low.
Yeah, I have other stuff.
At least it's your top 10.
Yeah, I was like, it's got to be at least in the, like, it's not my top 5, but it can't.
You'll leave me some room to go in on it.
Well, yeah, no, because I know that this is going to be very high up with me, so I won't say a whole lot about it. But this is like, this really allows Two-Face like his moment to shine. I do really like the part where Because a lot of times in the Two-Face iterations, it's just like, you got Harvey Dent. He wants to do justice. And then like he gets burned and all of a sudden he's got a split personality disorder. But like going into this episode, he already has a mental disorder where he's got big bad horrors.
Right.
Like in the back of his head. Then like the accident only brought it out of him. Like it was already in him. It brought it out of him.
Yeah.
And but yeah, seeing him become Two-Face is heartbreaking. Seeing Batman, especially because Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent were friends, seeing the breakup of that relationship is also heartbreaking to watch. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into this because I know that you're going to want to talk about it. But it's not my top 5, but it's definitely not lower in the list of episodes. But yeah, that's why it's in the list. Yeah, like I couldn't put it in 5, but like
at least it's your top 10.
I couldn't put it like at 9.
Yeah,
like it's too good to put it there. Yeah.
Okay, so my number 6 is Almost Got Him.
Oh, okay.
So just out of my top 5, yeah, I mean, you already touched on it. It's just a great episode. You get Ellen's playing poker. I mean, my favorite thing about the episode is that you almost get 3 mini episodes in an episode. You get to see Ivy take on Batman, Penguin take on Batman, Joker take on Batman, which feeds into the episode. But what's great is you got to see the writers kind of go, okay, we've got 3 minutes to do this. Let's go all out for these 3 minutes with each of these villains.
Right.
Because you get really cool showdowns between Penguin, Ivy, and Joker with Harley in all of their retellings, where not that you wouldn't get them in another episode, but it would be a build up and a build up and you finally get it. Whereas this, you're like, they're giving you all the meat on the bone really quickly. So like, that's one of my favorite things about it. I mean, Killer Croc and it's great. And it's
rock at
him.
Was a big rock.
And I mean, the Joker showdown with him is great. Like, it's one of the most iconic comic covers from the run. It's like you always see Batman tied up in that machine with Joker pointing to us from that episode.
Yeah.
You get the stuff with Catwoman in it, which is great at the very end. And then, yeah, it's just cool to see Batman. It's cool to see, he does it a couple times in the series where he's disguised as somebody else. He's got the prosthetics of Croc Nolan. And he's the visual of the light, because it's one of those drop down like oval lights, and it swings that way, it goes dark, and as it swings back, you just see Batman's eyes, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And he takes everybody out. It's one of my favorites.
All the police turns their guns on them.
All the police were all the guys that were also playing poker. They were all stand-ins. Yeah. It's a great episode. It's fun. Yeah, and we already touched on it earlier. So for that, it's my number 6. Yeah. I like that. So all right, we're cracking top 5.
Getting to the top 5. So for my 5th episode of all time, it's Never Too Late.
Oh,
yeah. So a lot of my
respectful pick.
Yeah. So a lot of my episodes that I've gone over, a lot of them are very cinematic and climactic, and there's a really big battle at the end. But like, this isn't one of those episodes. It's kind of more along the lines of some of the episodes that he's picked, where there's not really a whole lot of stakes to it. There's not a named villain in it, from what I remember. It's also been a long time since I've seen this episode, but I do remember just how well the writing is, where you have the 2 brothers. One of them
is a priest.
One of them's that's right. It was one of them's a priest, and one of them's like a crime lord of some kind.
He's a drug
lord. That's what it is. And like literally the entire time, like Batman's just trying to get him to like reform and come back to the light.
Like, he's not beating him down.
Yeah, no, he's not beating him down. And like, there's a very like religious element to it, which is like that's like, I'm surprised that they even did that like in cartoons and like a mainstream, Batman show, which was like really cool to see. And we talked about it before, like, especially when we're talking about Star Wars on this channel, I'm a huge fan of redemptive stories. So like, when a person who you think might be too far gone, they finally come back to the light, and like, it's not perfect. Right. It's not like they're a good guy all of a sudden. Like, they still have stuff that they have to work out. And like, they still have a lot of baggage and heartbreak that goes along with that turn to the good side, so to speak.
Yeah.
But like, in the end, there's like, because if you don't know, like one of the reasons, because I'm trying to remember what was the accident, because then he loses his leg.
The accident, he doesn't lose it. The accident is when their brothers as kids, they're playing on the train track. The brother who's the priest pushes his drug lord brother out of the way. and the train clips his leg.
That's what it was.
So he doesn't lose it, but he has to
He's like
walk around.
crippled.
He's crippled. He walks around the cannon.
Well, yeah. So like that was one of the reasons why he went on into the life of crime, because he just felt like, degenerate drove him towards that side, and like seeing the reconciliation of that relationship and like him trying to come out of that life is just it's done
well. And the best part,
masterfully.
The best part of the whole episode is when he goes to see his ex-wife and his son.
Yeah,
and his son's in recovery from the drugs that he was peddling.
Yes,
he didn't know.
Yes,
and Batman's like, "This is the legacy you want to live. Your son is maybe gonna die."
Especially like him seeing the error of his. I forgot about that part, but him seeing the error of his ways,
where he's like, "Oh, like these drugs have now affected my son's life."
Yes, like he's like, it's time to
turn around.
Even though he's an old dude, he's like, I've got to make a change.
Yeah,
and that's
a great pick.
Yeah, that's why it's my number 5.
Great pick. So my number 5 is If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich? This is my favorite Riddler episode.
Okay.
This has got some nostalgia behind it. My dad used to take me. It's one of my favorite childhood memories. Is when Blockbuster was still a thing. Mm-hmm. He would take me to Blockbuster, and they wouldn't have the full seasons to rent, but they would have the it was like DVDs or these 4 episodes or whatever. And the one I would always get had Christmas with the Joker and If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Rich on it. I don't remember what the other 2 were. But it's just, I love it because, number one, they do the origin of Riddler masterfully. Yeah. Masterfully. And it really does display Riddler's mind games. And just the aesthetic of the show where they go into the maze and they have to fight the Minotaur. Yeah. And they're trying to save the boss that fired Riddler. And one of my favorite things about the episode is it really displays like Matt Reeves' Batman did a great job of this, where like a lot of times you view Riddler as kind of a goofy villain. Whereas like this Riddler, like, oh no, this guy's psychotic and really smart and could kill you if he wants to. Yeah. Where you see when they finally save the boss at the very end, you get where Batman's like they're showing the boss in his house, his penthouse thing, but it's Batman talking over it. And he's like, he's like, well, Robin's like, well, at least he still got all his money. Yeah. And he's like, the real question is how much money's worth a good night's sleep? And you see they pan and he's like locking all his windows and locking all his doors. And he's got his pump action shotgun and he gets into bed and he puts the covers up and he's like he can't sleep. He's so in fear of the Riddler coming back, which they just that. It's like, oh, the Riddler is a real threat. Yeah. So when he shows back up in his other 2 episodes, it really established like, ooh, like what's the Riddler gonna do? Yeah. Like, so
because that's the cool thing about some of the villains is that they don't overuse them. So like when they do show up, it's
a big deal. Also, where you talk about the animation in this episode's great. Riddler looks great. I mean, the shot where you finally see him, where they're in I think it's an old casino or museum. I think it's a museum.
Are you talking about the pan up shot of him?
Where it's a pan up shot where you finally see the Riddler. Yeah. It's great because they do a full dark background and you just kind of see his silhouette and you see his eyes pop and you see the green and purple accents. And he's like, I'm the Riddler. Yeah. Ooh. It's done very well. So yeah, for that reason, it's my number 5. My favorite Riddler episode. So yeah, if you're so smart, you're rich.
That's a good one. I have for my number 4, we actually watched this last night. It is Feet of Clay Part 1 and 2. I am funny enough, Clayface is not really my favorite villain. Like he's not like he's a good one, but he's not really like a top 5 or whatever for me. Yeah. But I just think because I wanted to talk about this, but I'll try to wait till the end to do it. I really like it when you have, and Batman the Animated Series does this so well, when you just have a tortured character and seeing broken minds, not just with Batman, but with his villains, you see just how broken these people can be. And like, obviously, I just went blank on the guy's name, the guy, Matt Hagen. He's a jerk in the episode, but like you can tell he's a jerk because he's just been put through so much because he was in, some sort of accident that messed up his face, and then he
trying to get his career back
because the whole point of why he's trying to get his face back is because he's an actor and that's what makes him money. And so he's worried that he's going to lose his career. He's not going to have any money. He's going to, live on the street or whatever it is. And then you have, Daggett Industries that's like, oh, well, we have this experimental face cream that like you could have your face back, and he's like the guinea pig of it. But turns out it's addictive. It's like a drug. And so he has to have more and more and more and more of it to just remain normal. And so he's like losing his mind, and he starts doing these things for Roland Daggett of like illegal stuff so that he could just keep the influx of
the supply
of the drug or the face cream, or whatever we want to call it, so that he can just remain normal. And then, in part one, they try and like kill him, and they overdose him on the thing, and that's what turns him into Clayface. And then the second part is they're Two-Face, excuse me, Clayface is trying to get revenge on Roland Daggett. And like that's really the best scene in the two-parter is the very end, where Batman comes to save Roland Daggett. There's a fight between him. They're in a TV studio, and they go back in like the control room, and Batman had already plugged in all these like VHS tapes of all of his different roles. Mm-hmm. And he's going in, and like because he's seeing all the parts that he's played, like a pirate and a cowboy and like an army guy and an Indian or whatever it is. And like he starts losing his mind. He's like, I can't hold my form. I can't be all of them at once. And like Batman's like, please, I know what you're going through. Please let me try and help you. Let me reform you. And dude, like when we talk about animation, we talk about things that they could get away with back in the 90s. Like his death scene, like obviously he doesn't actually die because he has other episodes in the series, but like his death scene of him just like losing his mind, where he's constantly forming into all these different characters that he's played, and his mind is being stretched, and like the visuals of that scene where he almost becomes like a grotesque monster, where it's just like looking at him, you're like, oh, like that's kind of like a little graphic. It's like a graphic, short TV show. And then
it's show no less.
Yeah, and then the very end where you find out he's not actually dead, and like he because he's an actor.
Yeah,
he performed this death scene so eloquently for Batman, and that he's going to come back later. It's just, I think it's one of the best two-parters that we get in the series, and I think it gives a villain that doesn't really get a whole lot of love, and honestly is not even one of the best villains in Batman's wrote. It gives him a very well put together story of just like a broken man who wants to get back to what he was, but he can't.
100%.
And I really like it.
So it's definitely top 5 for sure. Yeah. So my number 4 is Heart of Ice.
Okay.
Number 4 is Heart of Ice. This is the episode that won an Emmy, right? Yeah. This is the episode that won an Emmy for the story. This is the episode that put the show on the map. They reinvented Mr. Freeze. Yeah. Like Mr. Freeze up until this point was a goofy villain.
Yeah.
Who had an ice gun, like especially you watch the Adam West show, which is like goof.
Yeah.
And Paul Beanie was like, you know what?
We're going to give him character motivation.
And it's just, literally this episode, when you think anything after this episode in terms of Mr. Freeze lore is from this episode.
Yep. Even the Batman and Robin.
Yeah, even Batman and Robin, it's this. So it's done so well. You get the little surprise cameo of Mark Hamill playing the corrupt corporate mad guy.
Sure.
But it's done so well. It's when you think of all of the villains in the show, he's probably the one you feel the worst for.
Oh,
because at the end, he's just trying to save his wife. Yeah, he's just trying to save his wife.
And I feel like out of all the villains in the show, he's the one that he's not really a villain.
He's not a villain.
He feels like he's trapped and he's doing all those things just because he wants to save his wife.
He wants to save his wife. Yeah. It's like perfect. Like it's just a perfect episode. Between where you watch the old, especially when you see Batman's response to the security camera footage of the accident.
Oh yeah.
And he's pleading with the corporate and the security, please, no, like my wife's in here, you can't do this. Like I'm just trying to save my wife, please.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is my money, I don't care. Like, sorry. The fight ensues, and he becomes Mr. Freeze. The visuals in this are great. Where he's got Batman hanging upside down, and all the snowflakes are falling down, and he's talking to Batman, and he's like, look, I understand you have a job to do, but so do I.
Yeah.
And you see Batman. I mean, Batman feels for all of his rogues in this show, but specifically with Freeze, you can tell he's like, I can help you save your wife. Just please, you have to stop. You have to stop. And it's just the end. It's one of the episodes where at the end you almost don't want Batman to win.
Yeah,
you almost don't want.
Well, even Batman himself is reluctant to stop.
He's reluctant to stop them.
Yeah,
where he's like, he doesn't want to, and you as the viewer don't want him to. You're like, no, like let him save his wife,
right? Let him take out his vengeance.
You get to see Mr. Freeze just be cool. They really display his stripes in the suit.
Yeah.
His visualization is the suit he's got is amazing.
Yeah.
And the end's great when Batman gives the security camera footage to Vicky Vale and he's like, here's your story.
Yeah. About
the corporate bad guy. And I mean, yeah, it's the perfect episode, y'all. It's the dynamic. They reinvented Mr. Freeze. I love what they do with Batman in the episode and his responses to things, and I love the way that they almost make Batman feel like a too righteous of a good guy, where you're like, come on, man, like you know what I mean? Where you never feel like that in the entire show. But in this specific episode, you feel that way because they just do such a good job at making you feel for Mr. Freeze. Because especially for the rest of the men in the world, I'm sure we can all, if we were put in the same situation, you have these certain abilities, you'd probably do the same thing to save your wife.
Right.
So it's just, for all those reasons, it's my number 4.
Yeah. So, but funny enough, that's my number 3.
Your number 3? Okay.
So, I mean, I think you touched on everything pretty well. One thing that I wanted to touch on was, Batman's character. A lot of times, like when people don't really know a whole lot about Batman, they're just like, oh, he's all about vengeance. Like, right. He just wants to enact vengeance because his parents, were killed, and now he's taking out his anger on all these guys.
Right.
And not that that's not an aspect of his character, but we get to see the almost like the reflection of that, of what would have happened if Batman were to truly lean into that vengeance, where he's like, no one gets a second chance. This is what happened to me. It's not fair that this happened to me, and I'm going to take out my wrath on all of these,
on everybody else.
And that's what Mr. Freeze is doing, because he had this guy who didn't care about his wife, causes her to fall into sickness or whatever it is. And, Mr. Freeze is trying to figure out a way. And so he decides to go and kill him at this dinner party. And that's the part that it's like, you get to see a different aspect of Batman's character, because obviously a lot of times he's just enacting vengeance, but you get to see the part where he's like, you have to be better than your base instincts. Like, you can't just kill this man. Like, I can help you. I know how to help you.
Right.
Please stop.
Right.
And it's like, it's just, like you said, it's almost so perfect of an episode that it's like, I don't really know how else to describe it.
But it's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10, yes. And just seeing, because we even talked about it earlier, Batman always has a heart for a lot of his rogues, because he knows where, in a certain way, he can relate to them and knows what they're going through. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Freeze is, especially considering that Mr. Freeze was a goofy villain and what they made him into in this episode. But the fact that Mr. Freeze is one of those people that it's like, he's not really a bad guy. He's doing bad things to save those he cares about.
Right.
And it's a chef's kiss of an episode.
It's a chef's kiss.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's really all I have to say about it. But after that, what is your...
So my number 3 is Feet of Clay.
Feet of Clay.
Flip flop.
Okay.
Love Feet of Clay, y'all. I mean, he touched on it pretty much. I mean, it's one of the best stories in terms of villains with Matt Hagen.
Yeah.
Where he's in a desperate spot. He's trying to save his career, just like anybody else would try to. Mm-hmm. He's put to this point where he is left with no other options.
Yeah.
And I mean, just let's talk about the visuals in these 2 episodes. I mean, the first episode has some shots where you're just like, oh my gosh. It's so beautifully done. I mean, the shot where Daggett is walking by the vats, and you get this shot of this green ooze he's got in this vat, and it's the silhouette of his face. And you're just like, that's amazing. I mean, the end shot where you were talking about the end of the episode, they almost went bankrupt doing this episode from
you're right. I forgot about that.
From just that scene because of how well it's done and how quick they were having to transform him and do these different shots.
Right.
They almost went bankrupt doing it. But it was well worth it. I mean, this is when you want to talk about it, you want to go see visual peak in 90s animation. Shoot, even now, go watch that episode. I mean, the end is heartbreaking, because even though, like you said, even though the end is kind of graphic and how he's changing, hearing his voice and how he's like, no, please, like he's pleading with Batman. He's like, I can't look at this. Like it's because not only is it physically affecting him, it's mentally affecting him. Right. To where he's like, this was the peak of my life. Like I'm not this man anymore. You can't show this to me. And he's pleading with Batman, like, please turn it off. And Batman goes to turn it off, and just in reaction, he hits Batman. And it just starts spiraling to the point to where he's, like you said, even when he does come back to being Clayface, it's like this weird, deformed version of Clayface. And, he slams into the monitors and electrocutes them. And, you get that line where he looks at Batman and he goes to the Matt Hagen face. And it's like, you know what I would have killed for a death scene like this? And he goes out. And I mean, just the end where his stand-in, his buddies at the hospital, and he's like, I'll see you soon, Matt, or whatever. And it's the woman walking by him that's Clayface. And the laugh, the Clayface laugh is stuff out of a horror movie. And his eyes go to the yellow Clayface eyes while he's still this woman in full on. And you get the line from Batman where Batman's like, he was an actor. He's probably not actually there. It's just, we already touched on it. I won't go too much more into it. It's just, it's a top 3 for me for those reasons. And it's one of my favorites. Yeah. So that's my number 3. So, all right, crunch time, dude. Top 2. What's your number 2?
Number 2, not surprising, is Robin's Reckoning Part 1 and 2. So, I feel like out of all the Robin episodes, this is probably like peak Robin, because you get to see a little bit of his backstory. You get to see that Tony Zuko was the one that was manipulating the trapeze that made his parents fall to his death. And they thought that he got away and that they weren't ever going to fight him ever again. And you get to see like that scene with when Bruce Wayne, like he'd already adopted Dick. And like it's a young 10 whatever year old Dick Grayson sitting by the window as he's obviously heartbroken and distraught because he just watched his parents die in front of him, and Bruce is coming to console him. And Dick's like, if only I was there. I knew he was out of place. Like I should have done something. And Batman or Bruce Wayne, he's like, I know how you're feeling. Like if you'd just been in a different spot, if you had just done something different, then maybe the outcome would have changed, but it wouldn't have. Like, and he's like, I wish I could tell you that the hurt's going to go away, but it never does. You just have to move on. And like, I can help you.
He says it does get better.
It does get better. That's just, it says. And then like seeing Bruce Wayne embrace like a young, just tears streaming down his eyes, Dick Grayson, and like hugging him. And like Batman's almost getting emotional because he's like, I have been exactly where you're at. Yeah. And then you fast forward and you get Tony Zuko comes back to town and he's doing stuff. And like Batman's like, look, I'm going to sideline you because I know your emotions are going to get in the way and you're going to mess something up. And like, I will take care of it. And Robin's like, you can't do that to me. You can't.
Yeah.
And like, there's a line where he's like, Batman in your stone cold heart, you could never understand what I'm.
Oh yeah. He says,
and then Batman's like, Batman doesn't say anything, and then Robin's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. But like, and then it all culminates. You've got Robin's trying to rush to the scene where Batman's got Tony Zuko, and Tony Zuko's actually gained the upper hand on Batman, and
Batman's been crippled at this point.
Yeah, like he got like
we had to bandage.
He hit a stray from one of like the machine gun fire, and then Robin comes in and he's comes out of a bullet and just like starts beating on Tony Zuko, and like he's about to finish it, and Batman's like, Robin, like you can't, like you have to be better. And Robin makes the right decision. He's like, you know what, you're right. I know you killed my parents, but like, I have to let it go.
Yeah.
And it's just like Dick Grayson is one of my favorite characters from fiction, and watching that play out, like because, you know, Batman a lot of times doesn't get that, like, I guess, reassurance and like that finality of his parents' death, and like Robin, like watching Batman watch Robin get that finale and him making the right choice and doing the hero's thing, and like, I had to let it go and I had to forgive. It's just, it's very, because like a lot of us, if we were put in that situation,
What would have done that?
probably would have, you know, also we probably would have had a gun and pulled the trigger. But like watching Dick Grayson make the heroic choice, it's so well done. And it's just, that's why it's my number 2.
I hear you, man. It's not in my list, but I recognize the greatness of the episode.
What's your number 2?
So my number 2 is the Laughing Fish.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is my favorite Joker episode. It's my second favorite episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we touched on it earlier. It's the animation in it is great. It's just one of those where you get to see Joker being just Joker. He's just this vindictive, angry, but doing it with a smile and a laugh on his face. And, you know, the way he goes through these corporate officials who do the food market, and he's trying to attack them. And, you know, you get some great lines and dialogue from that. You know, you get to see him almost outsmart Batman a couple times. Batman gets him on the second go, but, you know, and it all accumulates at the aquarium. And you get that shot. I love, it's one of my favorite shots in the whole show, of when the lights are dark and Joker, the shark's right next to Joker, and he's given the shark Joker serum. So he's got this smile of the shark. And he goes, "Don't you like how they have this? We have the same smile." And it's just a great shot. Yeah, I mean, it's just great. You get Harley in this as well. Harley plays a good role. I mean, like you said, the fight in the aquarium is great, where Batman is like fighting a shark handcuffed.
Yeah.
Trying to keep him away from Bullock. And he's riding this shark, just trying to, and he finally gets him to hit one of the glass panes and breaks everybody out. The fight results going up to the top, where you get one of the best, I think next to Mad Love, it's probably my favorite Batman and Joker showdown.
Yeah.
Where you get Joker with this crowbar. It's the only time in the show you get Joker with the crowbar. And, or I'm sorry, it's not a crowbar. It's a big like crescent wrench. And he's like, and he does he goes down at the wrench, and he goes bink, and he just overhands Batman with it. And you get this awesome hand-to-hand combat with Batman and Joker, where Joker falls off into the ocean.
Right. Well, did you have the fake hand gag where Batman tried to reach out and save him, and his hand popped?
Yes, his hand pops off. And you get the end where Batman's talking to Harley, and she's crying, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm out." Or he's talking to Gordon, and he's like, "I wouldn't say this is the last we've seen of him." And you see the Joker card pop up out of the water.
Yeah.
It's done so well. It's my favorite Joker episode. It's definitely one that, just for sake of nostalgia, things like that, it's in my top 2. So, yeah, that's my number 2. So, all right. So we're coming down to number 1. What's your number 1?
My number 1, he knows what it is, but mine's a little bit out of left field. It's this villain does have 2 episodes, but that's it. He's never really mentioned again after that. But my number 1 is Day of the Samurai.
Very out of left field.
Yes. So I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but essentially when Batman went off... Kyodai, yes. Kyodai. When Batman went to train in Japan before he became Batman, there was one guy in the class that Batman could not defeat. And his name was Kyodai. He became... he tried to... what was it? He tried to take over the dojo?
He tried to take over the dojo. The ancient technique.
Like a scroll. Yeah. So the master of the dojo, you know, like puts him in his place, and then like he becomes an evil ninja after that. And in the first episode, it's called Night of the Ninja. He comes to Gotham, and you know, he's doing whatever. Yeah. And Batman, actually Bruce Wayne was the one who had to defeat him because he kidnapped Bruce Wayne. So then in the Day of the Samurai, which is their second meeting, Kyodai had figured out, Batman is Bruce Wayne, because, you know, like fighting styles are like fingerprints. He knows we're in the same age.
Yeah.
And the thing that I find really cool about this episode is I can acknowledge that Night of the Samurai is probably a better written episode, but
Night of the Ninja.
Night of the Ninja is the better written episode, but Day of the Samurai it's the final meeting. It's a very climactic cinematic battle where Kyodai had found the ancient scrolls. He figured out some technique that could like instantly kill a man, and so he kidnaps Alfred, and there's this exploding volcano that's erupting, and Batman shows up, and Kyodai's like, you know what? I know who you are. He takes off his mask. He's like, why don't we face him man to man? Batman takes off his cowl, and he's like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so they're fighting in this exploding volcano, and Kyodai does the move and Batman screams out in pain, and you think that he dies.
Right.
And Kyodai thinks he's finally won his great victory over Wayne's son, right?
Wayne's son.
And then Batman gets up and he's like, looks like your technique is not what you thought it was. And then they keep fighting throughout the volcano. And then Batman eventually gains the upper hand, and Kyodai gets stranded on a rock. And Batman throws like a bat line out to him. He's like, look, I can pull you to safety. We can get out of this. And you can, and you just see him kick it into the lava. He bows to Bruce Wayne, and then the lava just comes to destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool because that's very Japanese culture, where it's like death or honor, or death before dishonor. And it's really cool to see, because like there's not really another villain in the show, maybe besides Bane, where you're like, I don't know if Batman can actually
like physically
win this battle. And like, obviously he does in the first one, but in their rematch, he's got this new technique.
Right.
And it's just like the visual of the final battle, especially I'm trying, like he kidnaps Alfred, it becomes super personal at that point. It's just,
right.
And I can explain it all day long, but at the end of the day, I can't really express why it's my favorite episode. It just is. Right. So, but for all those points, that's why it is my number one. So
you got to respect a good individual pick.
Yes.
So really quick before I go into if our lights go out, y'all have trucks through if you're at this point, and we'll just close out.
So be it.
So my number one is Two-Face Part 1 and 2. That is my favorite episode of all time. My favorite arc. Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing about one of my favorite things about this is how the first episode he's not even Two-Face. The entire first episode, you just see Harvey dealing with this mental split personality disorder while he's trying to make mayor.
Yeah.
And you see the friendship between Bruce and Harvey really blossom. Like they really deliver, like these guys are tight, like they're really close friends. And so, you see the shot with therapist when she hypnotizes him and asks to talk to Big Bad Harv. And he rages and throws the chair out the window, and he kind of snaps back.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, did I do that?" Like he's so like that's how much of a contrast there is, where he's not even there.
Right.
And it's the entire first episode is great, where Richard Thorne has finally got some blackmail on Harvey.
Yeah.
It results at the chemical plant where Harvey becomes Two-Face. He gets burned. Leading into the second part, where you get one of the best shots of the entire series, where when Grace, his fiance, is going to see him in the room, and he breaks out of the room, and he's kind of like, oh, and he looks at her, and the shot of the window and the lightning hitting it lights up the side of his face that's been burned.
It's almost like a horror.
It's almost like a horror visual.
Yeah.
And she faints, and he's like, "I'm sorry, Grace." Then he leaves, and then the second episode picks up with he's Two-Face on. It's full blown. He's Two-Face. He's got henchmen. He's in the split suit. He's fully blown into this Big Bad Harv Two-Face persona. Harvey's no longer there. You get the great stuff with Bruce and his dreams, where Bruce is really struggling, where he's feeling like he failed his friend.
Yeah.
And Bruce is like, it's not, he's not just trying to get a villain. He's like, this man was my friend. And I feel partly responsible for what's happened to him.
Right.
And then the entire episode, he's trying to talk to Grace. You get Candace posing as a cop going to Grace, like, hey, if he ever contacts you, I want to see you, press this. Letting Rupert Thorne know where he's at, because they're trying to find him. It leads to the casino, where the big showdown happens. And it's between Two-Face and Thorne and his men and Two-Face's men. Batman gets in there. It's this big showdown. And oh my gosh, it's so good when Batman's hurt and Two-Face has got a gun they're going to say, like, Two-Face has got a gun at Thorne. And Batman can't get there in time. And so as Two-Face flips the coin, Batman flips a bunch of quarters, tray of quarters, and it scatters everything. And he's like, no. And he starts like literally freaking out because he's like, I can't find it. Like, where's my coin? I can't find it. I can't make it to zoo. Like, he's freaking out. And Grace starts crying. And you get this great voice performance from the actor of Two-Face where he's like, does this like guttural cry, scream where he's like, oh, and he loses it. And he starts crying and Grace coddles him. She's like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And you just see this man who was supposed to be the light of Gotham from the public eye, and this great downfall to what he has become, and his alternate side is completely taken over, and it's just this broken man.
Yeah,
and all he has left is his woman holding him, which is just it's just great. That's just a great visual and what it signifies, and you see the heartbreak on Batman's face as it's happening, and it ends up being obviously it goes to Arkham and everything else, but it's just. In the same way what they did for Mr. Freeze, they did for Two-Face in this show. That episode as a kid is what made, like I said earlier in the show, between my number 2 spot is the tie between Two-Face and Bane. And so that's what made that happen. That's why it's my favorite episode. It's just also the visuals. It's always raining. You get like a rainy Gotham City. You get Batman on his bike, which is great. You don't get to see that often. You can see Batman on his bike with his helmet. So it's just for all those reasons, it is my number 1. So you want to close this out?
I'll close this out. Well, hey, thank y'all for those who actually stuck to the very end, despite our lights going out and us blabbering on about a cartoon Batman show. Thank you for sticking to the end. This is a really fun one that we wanted to make for you guys, just to let you know our favorite episodes of Batman the Animated Series. If you want to see, if you want to see more top 10s, more top 15s, more episodes like this where we just sit down and talk about one thing the entire time, even if it ends up being an hour and a half, let us know. We really enjoyed making this episode, but
we'll be back on regular scheduled program next week.
Next week, number 25, will be back on our regular schedule. But thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.